They say every princess needs a Prince Charming with a glass slipper. But she didn't need a slipper, she needed legs. In a world where the rich live in the clouds and the poor survive in the mud, a crippled princess found her freedom not in a palace, but in the hands of a filthy mechanic from the underworld. He didn't give her jewelry. He built her wings from scrap metal. This is not a fairy tale. This is the story of how a pile of rust saved a falling sky. Chapter 1: The Sky and the Mire. The city of Ethelgard hovered amidst the clouds like a giant jewel carved from crystal and white steel. The light from millions of plasma lamps radiated a brilliant halo, making the surrounding night seem afraid to ever encroach. There, the air was always purified, scented with a hint of artificial lavender, and melodious classical music echoed from loudspeakers hidden within marble statues. It was paradise. But every paradise needs a shadow to accentuate its brilliance. Deep beneath the bottom of that jewel, thousands of meters away, where sunlight never reached, was the lower level, or as it was called by its naked name, the mire. Kaelen wiped the back of his grease-stained hand across his forehead, leaving a long black smear on his tan skin. The sound of a hammer tapping, clang, clang, rang out steadily in the cramped space of the machine shop, mingling with the screeching of the wind blowing through rusty crevices. He squinted, looking at the tiny energy core pulsing with a faint blue light on his workbench. "Come on, you can do it," Kaelen whispered, his voice raspy but gentle, as if coaxing a child. He carefully used tweezers to pick up a filament as thin as a spider's web, connecting it to the main circuit. A small spark flew, and then, the mechanical bird on the table shuddered. Its wings, made from old soda can scraps, vibrated slightly, then flapped hard. Or, it took flight, wobbling a bit before circling the oil-scented room. Kaelen smiled, a smile that brightened his smudged face. But that smile vanished when his eyes landed on a tattered poster on the wall. The Starlight Gala, celebrating 100 years of the Ethelgard's ascension. He needed a military-grade gravity stabilizer. Only that could help him complete the biggest project of his life, an air purification machine that could stop the people of the Mire from dying of lung disease. And that very item, tonight, would be displayed as a luxury ornament at the Starlight Gala in the Upper Realm. "Sorry, little one, I have to go on a trip," Kaelen said to the mechanical bird perched on his shoulder. He opened the old wooden chest under his bed, pulling out the most luxurious outfit he owned. A waiter's vest he had scavenged from a scrapyard 3 years ago, patched so meticulously it was hard to tell. The road from the mire to the upper realm was a journey through hell to reach heaven. Kaelen clung to the undercarriage of a food waste transport ship, enduring the bone-cutting cold of the altitude and the stench for 2 solid hours. When the ship docked at the service port of the Cloud Palace, Kaelen agilely jumped down, rolling into a camera blind spot. He adjusted his collar, smoothed out the wrinkles on his vest, and took a deep breath. The air here was too sweet. It was so sweet it made his chest, accustomed to inhaling coal dust, ache. Kaelen blended into the stream of waiters carrying trays of sparkling champagne. He kept his head down, playing the invisible man. That was the rule of survival. The rich never looked at the faces of those who served them. To them, he was just a moving pair of hands. The ballroom was overwhelmingly vast. The ceiling was a giant glass dome, showcasing the entire beauty of the Milky Way. Gentlemen in tailcoats studded with gemstones, ladies in ball gowns billowing like clouds. They laughed, raised glasses, and twirled in an endless waltz. Kaelen wove through the crowd, his eyes constantly scanning for the technology exhibition area. But security was too tight. Robot guards with glowing red eyes stood watch at every main passage. "Damn it," he muttered. He needed another way. He saw a glass door slightly ajar leading to the west balcony. That was the hanging garden area, a place few visited because the wind there was quite strong. Perhaps from there, He could climb through a ventilation duct to get to the storage room. Kaelen slipped outside. The noise and bustle of the party were instantly cut off as the glass door closed behind him. The space became silent, save for the whistling wind and the rustling leaves. This garden was heartbreakingly beautiful, with phosphorescent flowers glowing purple and blue, radiating a magical light. Kaelen walked stealthily, trying not to make a sound. His old shoes stepped onto the velvet soft grass. Suddenly, he froze. In the most secluded corner of the garden, where climbing vines draped down like a natural curtain, someone was there. Not a guard. Not a couple sneaking around. It was a girl. She sat with her back to Kaelen, facing the abyss of the vast night sky. She wore a pristine white evening gown, the silk flowing to the ground like a stream of silver. Her platinum hair reflected the light from the flowers, creating a hazy halo. But what caught Kaelen's attention wasn't her beauty, but what she was sitting on. It wasn't a normal chair. It was a massive, cold machine, with robotic arms and a complex magnetic cushion system surrounding the girl's small body. It hovered about 20 centimeters off the ground, emitting a low, monotonous hum, a hover chair, Model X9000. The newest model. The most expensive. And to Kaelen's mechanic eyes, also the most soulless. Kaelen intended to turn and leave before being discovered, but a small sound stopped him. A choked sob. Very faint, but in this quiet space, it was as clear as breaking glass. The girl was crying. The instinct of a man, or rather, the instinct of someone who always wanted to fix broken things, rose stronger than the fear of being caught. Kaelen took a step forward, accidentally stepping on a dry twig. Crack. The girl jumped. The magnetic chair spun around at a dizzying speed, fast enough that Kaelen feared she would get vertigo. "Who goes there?" Her voice rang out, sharp and authoritative, but still trembling with the remnants of tears. Kaelen raised his hands in surrender, stepping out of the shadows. The light from the phosphorescent flowers illuminated his face. "Don't call the guards," Kaelen said quickly, his voice warm and deep. "I'm just a lost waiter. I didn't mean to disturb you, miss." The girl's eyes widened, staring at him. They were the most beautiful violet eyes Kaelen had ever seen, deep as the universe out there, but currently swimming in tears. She quickly wiped her eyes, trying to regain her pride. What did you see?" she asked, her voice cold, glancing down at her motionless legs covered by the long dress, then at the bulky machine surrounding her. Kaelen lowered his hands, stuffing them into his pockets. He looked at her, then at the chair, his eyes narrowing in professional assessment. "I see," Kaelen said slowly, stepping a bit closer despite her wary look. "A terrible design." The girl was stunned. "What?" "This chair," Kaelen pointed at the X9000. "The gravity balance system is off by 0.5 degrees to the left. That's why when you turn quickly, it makes that annoying screeching sound at the rear axle. And that back cushion, it's too hard, it surely presses on your spine causing pain if you sit for more than 2 hours. Whoever designed this thing surely never had to sit in it." Silence engulfed the garden. Elara, that was the girl's name, looked at the stranger with utter astonishment. Hundreds of people had seen her sitting in this chair. They looked at her with pity, or disgust, or fawning praise for the Vance family's state-of-the-art technology. Not a single one, not one had dared to call it a terrible design. And no one had cared whether her back hurt. "Who are you?" Elara asked, her voice softening, curiosity replacing fear. "A royal engineer. You don't look like one." Kaelen laughed, a natural laugh without any reservation. "Royal engineer? No, they only know how to follow books. I'm Kaelen. I fix things people throw away." He reached into his vest pocket, pulling out a handkerchief. It was slightly crumpled and had a small oil stain in the corner, but it was clean. He held it out to the highborn princess. Use this for now. Your makeup is smudged. Elara looked at the cheap handkerchief, then into Kaelen's sincere amber eyes. In that moment, the 10,000-meter distance between the Mire and the Cloud Palace seemed to vanish. She hesitated a moment, then reached out a pale, trembling hand to take the handkerchief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I am Elara." "I know," Kaelen lied. He actually didn't know who she was, just guessed she was the daughter of some noble family. But he didn't want her to feel scrutinized. "Why are you hiding here? Is the party that boring?" "I hate it," Elara blurted out, a candor that surprised even her. She looked up at the starry night sky. "In there, everyone looks at me like a broken porcelain doll. They don't talk to me. They talk to my father about my medical records. I feel suffocated." Kaelen nodded. He leaned against the stone railing, standing parallel to her, both looking out at the sea of clouds. "I understand that feeling. The feeling of being trapped." "You do?" Elara turned to look at him, her delicate eyebrows raising. "You have working legs. You can go anywhere. How could you understand?" Kaelen looked down at his worn-out shoes, then down into the pitch-black abyss below the clouds, where his home lay submerged in darkness. "Sometimes," Kaelen said, his voice lowering, "chains aren't made of metal, miss. They are made of prejudice, of origin. You are stuck in this expensive chair, and I am stuck down there, where there is no light. We are both just trying to breathe." The night wind blew hard, tossing Elara's platinum hair and messing up Kaelen's black hair. Two people from two opposing worlds, accidentally standing side by side, sharing a common loneliness amidst the vast universe. Suddenly, sirens wailed from the main entrance of the palace. Searchlights swept across the garden. "Intruder alert! Seal off the west sector." The loudspeaker boomed. Kaelen started, his face paling. He had forgotten his mission, forgotten who he was. "Damn, they found me," Kaelen whispered, turning to Elara. "I have to go. It was nice meeting you, Elara." He intended to dash for the railing to jump to the drainage pipe, but Elara's silk dress had caught in the wheel of the chair when she tried to turn. "Wait," Elara cried out, reaching towards him. "You'll fall and die." The stomping footsteps of guards were getting very close. Flashlight beams were dancing on the trees ahead. Kaelen was trapped. He couldn't jump down in time, and he couldn't go back. Just as the glass door burst open and guards stormed in, Elara suddenly grabbed Kaelen's wrist, pulling him down hard to hide behind the back of her massive chair. Her gigantic silk dress spread out, covering him like a soft shield. "Lady Elara." The voice of the guard captain rang out, full of concern. "Are you all right? We detected a strange signal here." Kaelen held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He was kneeling at the feet of the crippled girl, smelling the faint scent of jasmine from her, and feeling her small hand trembling on his shoulder, protecting him. His fate, his life, now lay entirely in the answer of the girl whom he had just told was sitting on a terrible design. Chapter 2: Not a Monster. Kaelen held his breath. His entire world at that moment shrank to the dark space beneath the billowing silk dress. Elara's scent enveloped him. Not the overpowering perfume of the noble women he had passed in the ballroom, but a pure scent, cold as early snow, mixed with the faint fragrance of the night flowers blooming outside. He heard his own heart pounding against his ribs, the sound so loud he feared the guards outside would hear it. Elara's small hand still rested on his shoulder through the fabric, pressing down gently as if to signal, "Stay still." Those fingers trembled, but the pressure was strangely resolute. "Lady Elara," the guard captain's voice spoke, cautious and respectful. The sound of his armored boots grinding against the marble floor grew closer. Thermal sensors detected a strange heat source in this area. "We are concerned there might be an intruder from the Mire." Kaelen clenched his fists. "The Mire?" The way he spat out those two words was full of contempt, as if speaking of disease-carrying vermin. Above him, Elara took a deep breath. When she spoke, the trembling in her voice from earlier had vanished completely. In its place was an icy, haughty tone, a sound honed to command subordinates. An intruder? Elara scoffed, a laugh short and sharp as a razor. Captain, are you implying that I am hiding a criminal in this empty royal garden? Or do you think I, a cripple who cannot even stand on her own, am in the mood to entertain guests in the middle of the night? Silence hung for a moment. Kaelen could imagine the captain's bewildered face. No, my lady, I didn't mean that, he stammered. It is just security protocol, security protocol. Elara cut him off, her voice rising in indignation. I came out here to find some peace because the fake, stifling air inside makes me want to vomit. And now you bring guns and point them at my face? Do you want my father to know about this? That his daughter is treated like a suspect in her own home? The engine of the X9000 hover chair suddenly revved with a threatening growl, resonating with its owner's anger. The sound of the captain's heels retreating 2 steps. Please forgive us, my lady. We will leave immediately. Get out, Elara hissed through her teeth. And turn off that damn searchlight. It hurts my eyes. Yes. Fall back. All units retreat to the east sector. The footsteps stomped away. The clatter of weapons hitting armor grew faint and then vanished behind the thick glass door. The quiet of the night was once again returned to the hanging garden. Under the dress, Kaelen let out a long breath. He waited a moment longer to be sure, then moved slightly. They're gone, Elara's voice came, smaller, tired. You can come out. Kaelen lifted the heavy silk, crawling out. The cool air rushed into his lungs, waking him up. He stood, brushed the dust off the knees of his pants, and looked down at the small girl sitting in the giant chair. She wasn't looking at him. Her head was bowed, her hands gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles were white. Her thin shoulders were shaking. The pride and authority from moments ago had vanished like a soap bubble, leaving only a young girl terrified by what she had just done. Kaelen scratched his head, feeling awkward. He had never been good at comforting others, especially fragile noble ladies. Hey, he spoke up, his voice deep and rough. Top-tier acting. I almost believed you were going to skin him alive. Elara looked up sharply, her tear-filled violet eyes staring at him. You can still joke? She said, her voice cracking. If they found you, they would throw you into the windows. And my father would lock me in the glass room for a month for aiding a criminal. I am not a criminal, Kaelen corrected seriously, stepping closer to her without fear. I am a mechanic. And you just saved that mechanic's life. Thank you, Elara. Elara froze hearing him call her name so plainly. No honorifics, no titles. Just Elara. Strangely, it didn't annoy her. It made her feel real. She wiped her eyes, trying to regain her composure. Why are you here? Don't lie about getting lost. No one gets lost carrying a screwdriver in their breast pocket. She pointed at the handle of a tiny screwdriver poking out of his vest pocket. Kaelen laughed, the characteristic smirk of a mire dweller. He pulled out the screwdriver, whirling it artfully in his calloused fingers. All right, you caught me. I came up here to borrow a few things. An old gravity stabilizer, a few capacitors that you rich folks throw away like trash. Down there, that trash could save an entire neighborhood. He moved closer to her chair, his eyes fixed on the engine section underneath. And speaking of trash, Kaelen muttered, squatting down right next to her legs. Elara flinched, shrinking back. What are you doing? Shh. Kaelen signaled for silence. Don't you hear it? That screech in the right ball bearing. It's rubbing against the sensor nerve of the chair. No wonder you get startled so easily. Before Elara could protest, Kaelen had reached under the chair. Don't touch that! Elara cried out in panic. To her, this chair was a part of her body, but also the most hateful, ugly part. Someone touching it was like them touching her bare disability. It's dirty, grease. I'm more used to grease than perfume, Kaelen replied nonchalantly. He squinted, his hand gently twisting a tiny screw hidden deep within the machine shaft. The maintenance engineer you have is truly lazy. He installed the damping spring backward. Click. A small sound rang out. Immediately, the annoying hum vibration that Elara had endured for 3 years vanished. The chair became silent, gliding smoothly in the air like a true cloud. Elara's eyes went wide. The numbness running down her spine whenever she sat too long also eased significantly. What did you just do? Just adjusted the spring. Kaelen stood up, dusting off his hands. He looked at her, his eyes devoid of the pity she usually saw. Better? Elara nodded, slowly and in amazement. It's smoother. Much smoother. She looked up at the boy before her. Old waiter clothes, worn-out shoes, grease-smudged face. But his amber eyes shone brilliantly, containing a confidence and intellect she had never seen in the polished nobleman. Why? Elara asked softly. Why what? Why did you fix it for me? You hate us. People of the Mire always hate the cloud dwellers. Kaelen shrugged, walking to the railing, leaning back against it, letting the night wind toss his black hair. I hate injustice, yes. I hate that you guys eat lobster while the kids down there eat cakes made from moldy algae flour. But, he turned back to look at her, his gaze softening. Machines aren't at fault. And you are just someone who is trapped, like me. I am not like you. Elara lowered her face, looking at her motionless legs under the silk dress. You can run. You can climb. As for me, I am a monster, half human, half machine. My father says this chair is a grace, but I see it as an iron cage. Kaelen was silent for a long moment. He looked at the small girl drowning in terrible self-loathing. He remembered the mechanical bird he fixed earlier. It had broken wings, was thrown away, but now it was flying. You know, Kaelen said, his voice light. Down in the Mire, we don't call machines monsters. We call them dreams of steel. When a body part breaks, we replace it, upgrade it. It doesn't make us less human. It makes us stronger. He walked closer to her. This time, he bent down low to bring his eyes level with hers. This chair's indeed a terrible design, Elara. It's bulky, ugly, and it imprisons you. But your legs aren't a mistake. And you are certainly not a monster. Kaelen held up his calloused hand. The back of his hand was crisscrossed with small scars from metal cuts, and some fingers still bore traces of black oil that couldn't be washed off. Look at my hand. It's ugly, right? But it can create life from a pile of scrap metal. Your body is the same. If this chair is a cage, then we will break it. Or better yet, turn it into wings. Wings? Elara repeated, her eyes widening and sparkling. A fragile, crazy hope kindled in her chest. Yes. Wings. Kaelen winked. But I need time. And I need materials. Suddenly, the clock tower in the center chimed, signaling midnight. The dance music inside the hall shifted to the closing number. I have to go. Kaelen straightened up, his face becoming alert. The guards will come back to check again. Elara felt a surge of disappointment. This meeting was too short. She didn't want to return to the loneliness of that cold glass room. Will you come back? She blurted out, her voice carrying a plea she couldn't suppress. Kaelen had climbed onto the stone railing. Below was the gaping abyss with pitch-black clouds. He turned his head to look at her, a radiant smile blooming on his lips, outshining even the light of the plasma lamps. I still haven't gotten any capacitors, he laughed, a hint of mischief in his voice. "Besides, I can't let a potential customer use that vibrating machine forever." "I will find you, Cloud Princess." "Don't call me princess," Elara protested weakly, but her lips curved into a slight smile, the first real smile in years. "All right then. See you again, Elara." With that, Kaelen leaned backward. His body fell freely into the night. Elara let out a small scream, rushing her chair to the railing. She looked down, her heart clenching. But then she saw his small figure agilely grab onto a massive drainage pipe, swing once, and disappear into the darkness of the technical systems below. Only the night and the whistling wind remained. Elara sat there for a long time, her hand unconsciously touching the spot where Kaelen had tightened the screw under the chair. It still held the warmth of his hand. For the first time, she looked down into the black abyss below, the place called the Mire, the dirtiest and most terrifying place in the world, and she didn't feel afraid anymore. She saw a promise there. Kaelen slid down the exhaust pipe, friction burning his palms and shoe soles hot. He landed in a cramped technical corridor, dust flying everywhere. He coughed hacking coughs, dusting off his shoulder. His heart was still pounding, not from the risky jump, but from those violet eyes. He reached into his breast pocket. No capacitors, no gravity stabilizer. Economically, this trip was a miserable failure. He would have to eat moldy algae soup for another week. But his fingers touched something cool. He pulled it out. It was the handkerchief he gave Elara earlier. She had secretly stuffed it back into his pocket when she covered him with her dress, but wrapped inside the handkerchief was something. Kaelen opened it. A star-shaped sapphire brooch, sparkling with a mysterious blue light. A small piece of jewelry on her dress, but its value in the Mire could buy an entire new machine shop. Kaelen stared blankly at the gem in his hand, then looked up at the metal ceiling, as if his gaze could pierce through thousands of layers of steel to see that girl. "Idiot," he whispered, clutching the gem tight, grinning widely. "How can I dare not go back now?" In the darkness of the Mire, a star had just begun to shine. Chapter 3: The Secret Deal. Kaelen returned to his workshop as the dawn of the Mire began to break. A sickly, grayish light filtering through layers of thick smog. He slammed the heavy iron door shut, leaned his back against it, gasping for breath. The familiar room welcomed him with the pungent smell of machine oil, the sound of leaking pipes, and the damp cold seeping into his bones. But today, Kaelen felt his chest burning hot. He walked to the workbench, swept the pile of messy screws aside, and carefully placed the star-shaped sapphire stone on the rough wooden surface. Under the flickering desk lamp, the stone shone brilliantly, a pure and haughty blue light that looked utterly out of place amidst the surrounding scrap. It was like Elara, beautiful, precious, but completely not belonging to this dark place. "How many lives can you buy with this, Kaelen?" he asked himself, his finger tracing the cold surface of the stone. A dirt-poor mechanic in the Mire possessing a royal gemstone. If he took it to the black market, he could trade it for a month's worth of food, or a new air filter for the orphanage down the street, or simply sell it to buy a ticket to flee to another city, escaping this rat's life forever. But the image of Elara's tear-filled violet eyes appeared in his mind. Her words echoed in his ears. "I am a monster, half human, half machine." Kaelen gripped the stone in his hand. His gaze hardened, decisive. No. He didn't need good food. He didn't need to run away. He reached for a yellowed sheet of technical drawing paper, flipping it over. The charcoal pencil in his hand began to move swiftly. Rough lines gradually appeared. A hydraulic joint system. A dynamic balance shaft. Armor plates protecting the shins, not a hover chair. It was a pair of legs. Meanwhile, 10,000 meters up, Elara woke in a bedroom as large as a miniature palace. Walls of transparent tempered glass allowed the bright sunlight of the upper clouds to flood in, dyeing everything gold. But to Elara, this room was no different from a fish tank. Beautiful, transparent, and she was the lone ornamental fish swimming in solitude for outsiders to watch. The automatic sliding door opened with a soft hiss. A man walked in. He was tall, wearing a pristine white governor's uniform without a single wrinkle, his chest adorned with glittering medals. His platinum hair was meticulously groomed, his stern face exuding absolute authority. Governor Vance, her father, and the ruler of Ethelgard. "Good morning, daughter." His voice was warm but lacked natural closeness. He walked to the bed, bending down to kiss her lightly on the forehead. "Did you sleep well last night?" Elara shivered slightly. She tried to keep her breathing normal. "Yes, father." Governor Vance walked around the bed, his eyes stopping at the X9000 hover chair parked in the corner. He frowned, approached it, his white gloved finger running over the machine shaft. "The guard captain reported a strange heat signal in the hanging garden last night, and this morning, the maintenance technician said this machine had been tampered with." He turned sharply to look at Elara, his eyes cold as a scalpel dissecting her soul. "Do you have something to tell me, Elara?" Elara's heart seemingly stopped beating. Her hands clutched the silk blanket. Her father knew everything. He always knew everything happening in this city. Did he know about Kaelen? Had that boy been caught? Elara swallowed hard, trying to find the most convincing lie. "Last night I couldn't sleep, so I went to the garden for some air. The chair, it was making a very annoying squeaking sound. I used a nail file to pry at a loose screw." Governor Vance narrowed his eyes, staring at his daughter. The silence stretched suffocatingly. "You fixed it yourself?" he asked again, suspicious. "It hurt my back, father," Elara replied, her voice suddenly becoming firmer. She looked straight into her father's eyes. "Do I not have the right to adjust my own chair?" Vance looked at her for a long time, then his face relaxed. He chuckled softly, a tolerant but condescending laugh. "You are foolish, Elara. That is the most sophisticated machine in the world. You poking around randomly could damage the safety system." He stepped forward, stroking her hair. "Next time, call an engineer. Don't dirty your hands. You are a flower, Elara. And flowers shouldn't touch grease." With that, he turned to walk out the door. "I will have someone replace your chair with a new one immediately. Consider this one scrapped." "Wait!" Elara cried out in panic. That chair, that was the only thing Kaelen had touched. It was the only proof that last night's meeting was real. "Don't replace it, father. I'm used to it." Vance stopped at the door, not turning his head. "I only want what's best for you. Don't be stubborn." The door closed. Elara collapsed onto the pillow. Helplessness surged. He was always like that. He thought he was protecting her, but actually, he was stripping away everything that belonged to her, even the right to keep a broken item. Night fell. Elara sat alone before her vanity. She looked into the large mirror, reflecting a beautiful but sad girl. The X9000 chair was still there. Luckily her father hadn't had time to send someone to take it away due to a high council meeting. Suddenly, the smart mirror before her flashed continuously. Lines of blue code ran down the screen, overlaying her reflection. BZZT, BZZT, the speaker system in the room emitted a strange noise. Elara jumped back. Was the security system hacked? "Hello? Hello? Is this mic working? Damn it, high-tech stuff but crappy mic." A familiar voice rang out. Deep, raspy, and full of grumbling. Elara was stunned, then rushed close to the mirror. "Kaelen?" The image on the mirror stabilized. Kaelen's smudged face appeared, filling the frame. He was wearing huge welding goggles pushed up on his forehead, a screw held in his mouth. Behind him was the mottled brick wall of the shabby workshop. "Good evening, Cloud Princess." Kaelen spat the screw into his hand, grinning. "Special customer service here. How did you do this?" Elara whispered, looking around the room fearing surveillance cameras. "Shh, don't worry. I routed through the server of the Hanging Gardens irrigation system. No one monitors a water sprinkler." Kaelen winked smugly. But then his face became more serious. "I don't have much time. This signal won't last long." Kaelen held up a drawing covered in numbers and shapes to the camera. "Look at this, Elara." Elara squinted. It was an anatomical drawing of human legs, but the bones were replaced by metal bars, the knee joints were complex rotating shafts, and the tendons were delicate cable systems. "This is an exoskeleton," Kaelen explained, his voice full of excitement. "I studied your public medical records. Sorry for invading your privacy. Your spinal cord is damaged, but the peripheral nerves still react. If I build an external frame, connected directly to the electrical impulses from your brain, you can walk on your own. No hover chair. No one pushing." Elara's heart beat wildly in her chest. Walking on her own. The feeling of heels touching the ground. The feeling of taking a step. It was the wildest dream she had never dared to dream since she was 12. Are you telling the truth?" Her voice trembled. "I'm the best mechanic in this mire, milady." Kaelen patted his chest, but then his eyes drooped. "The problem is materials. The stone you gave me was very valuable. I traded it for some titanium and microprocessors. But to perfect the neural transmission system, I need something that isn't available on the black market." "What is it?" Elara asked immediately. "I can get it. Liquid nanocarbon core. It's only used in military devices or high-end royal medical equipment. And I need the source code of the balance system your father uses for the army." Elara bit her lip. Liquid nanocarbon was strictly controlled. And military source code? That was treason if discovered. She looked into Kaelen's eyes through the screen. He was waiting, not forcing, just waiting for her choice. A poor boy willing to sell a gemstone to buy materials to heal her legs, instead of buying food for himself. Did she dare to risk it? For her legs? For her freedom? "I will do it," Elara said, her voice firm. Kaelen was surprised. "Are you sure? If I get caught, I'll say I forced you to do it," Elara interrupted. She reached out to touch the mirror screen, right on Kaelen's face. "You are giving me wings, Kaelen. I won't let you fall." Kaelen smiled. A smile so gentle it softened the sharp lines of his face. "All right, partner. Here's the deal. You handle the materials and data. I handle the fabrication. Every night at this time, I will contact you. We will do this together." "Deal," Elara replied. "Oh, by the way," Kaelen bent down, rummaging for something on his workbench. He held up a tiny flower made of scrap metal. The petals were meticulously filed from soda cans, sparkling under the light. "For you. Since you gave me a star yesterday." He placed the flower close to the camera. "Good night, Elara." The screen turned off. The mirror returned to being a normal mirror, reflecting Elara's face. But this time, she saw herself smiling. She was no longer alone in this fish tank. Down below, amidst the mud and trash, someone was forging hope for her day and night. Elara turned her wheelchair toward the window, looking down at the pitch-black night below. "Wait for me, Kaelen," she whispered. "We will fly together." Chapter 4. Pieces from the Scrapyard. The mire never slept, because here there was no concept of day and night. Only endlessly long work shifts and hasty moments of shut-eye amidst the roar of machinery. In Kaelen's cramped workshop, the heat was at a scorching level. Clang! 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 The sledgehammer struck the iron anvil steadily, rhythmically like the heartbeat of a monster waking up. Kaelen was shirtless, sweat pouring down his spine, mixing with soot to form streaks on his bronze skin. On the anvil was an old titanium alloy bar, the thing Kaelen had traded a third of the Sapphire money for. It was stubborn and arrogant, just like those living in the upper realm. "Bend, you stubborn thing," Kaelen gritted his teeth, putting all his strength into the next blow. Bang! The metal bar finally yielded, bending into a perfect arc, the shape of a shin guard. Kaelen dropped the hammer, collapsing onto the old wooden chair. He gasped for air, his chest heaving violently. His hands trembled, fingers swollen and bleeding in places. But his amber eyes burned bright as he looked at the work cooling on the anvil. It wasn't just metal. It was freedom. The tiny room was now filled with scattered pieces. A crankshaft from a scrapped racing engine. Delicate fiber optic cables stripped from a dead service robot. An old solar battery pack, re-engineered for higher output. Kaelen was assembling these pieces of trash with a crazy logic only he understood. Bam! Bam! Rude banging on the door cut through his thoughts. "Kaelen! Open up! I know you're in there!" The voice was booming, reeking of alcohol and menace. It was Grok, the enforcer of this scrap district, a hulk of a man with a rusty mechanical arm who collected protection money. Kaelen hurriedly threw an oil tarp over the workbench, covering the parts of the exoskeleton. He wiped his sweat, grabbed the biggest wrench, and stepped to open the door. The iron door groaned open. Grok stood there, huge as a bear. Behind him were two lackeys holding iron pipes. "Time's up, little rat," Grok sneered, revealing yellowed teeth. "Did you score big this month? Rumor has it you sold a nice item on the black market." Kaelen leaned against the door, his face calm to the point of coldness. "Just rumors, Grok. If I scored big, I wouldn't be in this hole." "Don't lie." Grok lunged forward, shoving Kaelen's shoulder hard. He stumbled back a step, gripping the wrench tight. "Pay up 500 credits, or I'll smash this junk shop of yours." Kaelen looked into the giant's eyes, then glanced quickly at the oil tarp covering his secret. He couldn't fight right now. If they smashed things, days of work would be ruined. And more importantly, if they discovered what he was building, they would steal it and sell it to weapon smugglers. He swallowed his anger. "Fine," Kaelen said dryly. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a handful of currency chips, the money left after buying materials. Grok snatched them, counting quickly. He smirked. "Good. You know your place." He patted Kaelen's cheek, a gesture of humiliation. "Work hard. I'll be back next month." They left, their guffaws echoing through the dark corridor. Kaelen slammed the door, sliding down to sit on the floor. He looked at his empty hand. Out of money. He didn't have a penny left to buy food for the next week. His stomach growled in protest, but Kaelen ignored it. He stood up, flipping the tarp off. His eyes became gentle again as they touched the cold metal bars. "It's okay," he whispered to himself. "As long as she brings that thing." In the upper realm, Elara's battle took place in silence, with no hammer sounds, only the thumping of her heart in her chest. Governor Vance's office was a forbidden zone. It was protected by a retinal scan system and the most sensitive motion sensors. But Vance had a weakness. He was overconfident, and he never guarded against his crippled daughter. Elara glided the X9000 chair along the deserted corridor. Tonight, her father had a diplomatic party lasting until morning. This was the only chance. She stopped in front of the office door. "Unlock," Elara commanded the AI chip on her wrist, a tiny device Kaelen had guided her to install remote cracking software on the night before. Beep, beep, the indicator light turned from red to green. The sliding door opened. Elara glided inside. The room was vast, cold, covered by screens displaying military data. She didn't care about them. She rushed straight to the wall safe behind the desk. Inside the tempered glass was a small vial the size of a pinky finger, containing a pitch-black liquid, rippling like ink but emitting a faint ghostly purple glow. Liquid nanocarbon core. Material more expensive than pure gold, capable of connecting human nerves with machines perfectly. Elara's hands shook uncontrollably as she reached out, trying to reach the safe's control panel. It was too high for her sitting position. Damn it, she cursed silently, a word she recently learned from Kaelen. She tried to raise the chair as high as possible, but it was still a bit short. She had to stand up. Just a little bit. Elara gripped the edge of the desk with both hands, putting all her strength into her thin shoulders. She gritted her teeth, cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. She lifted herself off the chair, her useless legs dangling below like a 1,000-pound burden. Pain. Pain from her spine shot down, making her want to scream. But the image of Kaelen's smile, the image of the wings he promised, held her together. With extraordinary effort, she stretched up, her finger touching the emergency unlock button, a mechanical latch she knew her father often used when the electronic system failed. Click. The safe popped open. Elara fell back onto the chair, gasping like someone who had just run a marathon. She quickly grabbed the nanocarbon vial and a small data hard drive lying next to it. She hid them inside the fold of her bodice, right next to her wildly beating heart. Done, she whispered. But the mission wasn't over. Now came the hardest part, delivery. Kaelen was filing the knee joint when he heard a strange noise from the ventilation hatch, the door leading to the industrial waste pipe, where he had first escaped from the Cloud Palace. Knock. 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 3 knocks. That was the signal. Kaelen hurriedly dropped the file, running to open the vent cover. A small waste transport box slid down, crashing into the pile of scrap metal with a loud noise. Kaelen held his breath and opened the box lid. No garbage. Curled up inside the cramped, dirty box was a girl with messy platinum hair and an evening gown smeared with oil. "Elara?" Kaelen exclaimed, not believing his eyes. What the hell are you doing here? I thought you would send it via drone." Elara coughed, her face covered in soot. She looked up at him, her violet eyes still shining with stubbornness. "Drones can't pass through the Myers energy barrier without being shot down," she said, her voice hoarse, holding out her hand for Kaelen to help her up. "Besides, I wanted to see my wings with my own eyes." Kaelen shook his head, annoyed yet amused, but above all, filled with admiration. He carefully lifted her out of the smelly box, as gently as holding a piece of precious porcelain, then sat her on the only chair in the room, the chair he had lined with a cushion taken from an old pilot's seat. Elara looked around the room. It was smaller than her bathroom. Walls mottled with mold, ceiling crisscrossed with exposed wires, and air thick with the smell of molten metal. This was hell in her father's stories. But when her gaze stopped at the workbench, where the metal skeleton lay, she saw a strange beauty. The metal bars were meticulously polished, gleaming under the yellow light. They looked strong, sharp, and proud. "Is this it?" Elara asked softly, her finger trembling as it touched the cold thigh frame. "It's still rough." Kaelen scratched his head, looking rarely shy. He took a clean rag, wiping a smudge off her cheek. "But basically, the frame is done. Now it just lacks." Elara smiled. She reached into her dress, taking out the liquid nanocarbon vial and the data hard drive. The pitch-black liquid emitted a ghostly purple light, illuminating both their faces. "Heart and mind," Elara said. "I brought them." Kaelen took the vial, his eyes wavering intensely. He knew how precious this thing was, and he knew how she had risked everything to get it. "You're truly crazy, Elara," he said, his voice lowering, full of emotion. "Do you know if you get caught, You lose everything? I have nothing to lose, Kaelen. Elara looked straight into his eyes, her hand unconsciously grasping his calloused, wounded hand. I only have a hover chair and an arranged life. I want to trade it all for one chance to walk towards the person I want. In that moment, the cramped space of the machine shop seemed to expand infinitely. Amidst the scrap and grease smell, a sacred connection was formed. Not between a princess and a lowly mechanic, but between two rebels fighting fate together. Kaelen squeezed her hand gently. All right. Then let's begin. He placed the vial into the intake slot of the skeleton. His skilled fingers began operating on the old computer keyboard, inputting the source code Elara brought. Zip, zip. The nanocarbon stream began to flow into the circuit pathways on the skeleton. From cold silver, the metal bars started turning pale blue, then deep violet. They vibrated, emitting a soft hum, as if breathing. The exoskeleton had come alive. Elara held her breath watching the scene. It was more beautiful than any jewelry she had ever worn. Kaelen turned to her, sweat soaking his forehead but a radiant smile like the sun on his face. "Milady," he bowed, making an inviting gesture full of nobility but with a hint of teasing. "The carriage is ready. Would you like to try on your new shoes?" Elara laughed, tears of happiness welling in the corners of her eyes. "Put them on for me, mechanic." Chapter 5. The First Steps. The air in the machine shop seemed to be sucked out, leaving a breathless vacuum of silence. Only the low hum, from the metal exoskeleton lying on the floor remained, radiating a soft, magical purple light. Kaelen knelt on one knee on the cold concrete floor. He looked up at Elara, his amber eyes shining with gravity mixed with rare tenderness. "Listen, Elara," he said, his voice deep and raspy. "It won't be like wearing glass slippers. When the nano needles contact the nerves in your spine, it will hurt. A lot. Like being electrocuted. Can you handle it?" Elara looked down at her withered, motionless legs. For 10 years, she felt no pain there. She felt nothing. It was like a dead land. And now, she craved the pain. Pain meant life. "I can take it," she nodded, gripping the edge of the old wooden chair tight. "Do it, Kaelen." Kaelen took a deep breath. He carefully lifted Elara's legs, placing them into the cradle of the metal skeleton. The sensation of cold metal touching skin made Elara shiver, though she couldn't feel it in her legs. The vibration transmitting to her hips let her know the process had begun. Kaelen worked quickly and precisely. He tightened the soft leather straps at the thighs, knees, and ankles. Dry clicks rang out, sounding like a gun loading. The exoskeleton hugged her legs tight, looking like the armor of an ancient warrior, yet bearing a modern beauty with glowing circuit lines. "All right. Here comes the hardest part," Kaelen whispered. He took the main connection unit, a small metal plate containing the liquid nanocarbon core, and pressed it against Elara's lower vertebrae, right at the site of the old injury. 1, 2, 3. Zap. A shrill hiss rang out. "Hey!" Elara screamed, throwing her head back, her back arching like a bow. The pain was unlike anything she had ever imagined. It wasn't flesh-deep pain. It was as if thousands of hot needles were drilling straight into her spinal cord, running along nerves that had slept for a decade. Tears streamed from her eyes immediately. Her whole body shook, cold sweat pouring down. "Elara! Look at me! Look at me!" Kaelen's voice rang in her ears, full of worry. His warm, calloused hands gripped her shoulders tight, keeping her from falling off the chair. "Breathe. Don't hold your breath." Elara opened her eyes wide. Through the blur of tears, she saw Kaelen's smudged face very close. His eyes were full of panic but also full of determination. He was transmitting strength to her. The initial intense pain gradually subsided, replaced by another strange sensation. A warm current began to spread from her waist, flowing down to her hips, then down her thighs, knees, calves, and finally, toes. Elara was stunned. She held her breath. She felt cold. The cold of metal plating against skin. She felt heavy. The weight of the exoskeleton. She felt presence. Kaelen, she rasped, her voice broken. I feel my big toe. It's itching. Kaelen exhaled in relief, a radiant smile blooming on his lips, dispelling the tension in the dark room. That's a good sign. The nervous system has connected. Welcome back to the world of sensation. He stood up, stepped back, and held out both hands in front of her. Two cracked hands, covered in grease, but right now, to Elara, they were the most beautiful hands in the world. They were the only anchor holding her to reality. Come on, Kaelen said, his inviting voice full of challenge. Don't let these wings get rusty. Stand up. Elara looked at those hands, then down at the mechanical legs glowing softly. She closed her eyes, focusing her mind as Kaelen had instructed. Think about standing up. Just think. Command it. The thigh muscles, inherently weak, supported by hydraulic pistons, began to tense. Zzzzzzz, zzzzzzz, the servo motors hummed softly. Elara gritted her teeth, shifting her center of gravity forward. She grabbed Kaelen's hands. And then, a miracle happened. Her body slowly lifted off the seat. Up. Higher. The metal knee joint straightened with a solid clack. The metal soles hit the concrete floor with a crisp thud. Elara opened her eyes. The world suddenly changed. Her perspective shifted completely. She no longer had to look up at people's chins or waists. She was standing, and she was taller than she thought. For the first time, she looked straight into Kaelen's eyes, level. His amber eyes were right in front of her, reflecting the image of a girl standing on steel legs, her face wet with tears but radiant with happiness. So tall, Elara whispered, feeling slightly dizzy from the sudden height change. She wobbled. Careful. Kaelen hurriedly tightened his grip on her hands, taking a step forward to brace her. Your center of gravity isn't used to it yet. Lean on me. Elara fell into his chest. She heard his heart beating strongly through the thin shirt. The smell of sweat, rusty iron, and cheap soap assaulted her nose, but she didn't find it unpleasant. It was the smell of safety. I can stand, she sobbed, burying her face in his shoulder. Kaelen, I can stand. You're not just standing. Kaelen laughed softly, his hand awkwardly patting her back. You're as tall as me. Maybe even a bit taller because these soles are so thick. Elara laughed through her tears. She slowly pushed away gently, trying to balance herself. The exoskeleton worked perfectly, automatically adjusting microcircuits to keep her upright whenever she tilted. Kaelen looked at her, his eyes becoming gentle and deep. He didn't let go of her hands. Instead, his left hand held her small hand, his right hand gently placed on her waist, where soft flesh met cold metal frame. Milady, he whispered. Up there, at the parties, what do you usually do when the music starts? Elara was dazed. Dance? Right. Dance. Kaelen looked around the messy workshop. He reached out with his foot to lightly kick the old radio lying on the ground. Static, static, an old, scratchy melody rang out. It was a classic love song from the last century, slow and melancholic, singing about falling stars. I don't know how to dance the noble waltz, Kaelen confessed, starting to move his feet slowly. But in the mire, we just sway. I've never danced either, Elara said, her voice trembling. I only watched others dance through the window. Then this is the first lesson. Kaelen took a step back, pulling Elara gently. The leg machine hissed zzz, and Elara's right leg stepped after him. A clumsy step. The metal hitting the stone floor sounded harsh. But the second step was lighter. They moved slowly in the cramped space, weaving between lathes and scrap piles. The light from the mechanical legs cast strange dancing shadows on the wall. 1 step. 2 steps. Spin. Elara felt like she was flying. She no longer felt the weight of her body, no longer felt the pain of the past. She only felt Kaelen's steady hand and the rhythm of the scratchy song. She looked up at him. Under the yellow light of the workshop, Kaelen's smudged face looked strangely handsome. Not the flashy beauty of princes, but the beauty of earth and stone, of resilience. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice drowning in the music. "Thank you for not looking at me like a cripple." Kaelen bent down, his forehead touching hers. Their breaths mingled. "Elara," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You were never a cripple. You are the most perfect piece I have ever found." Time seemed to stop. In that moment, there was no noble princess, no lowly mechanic, no boundary between the upper realm and the mire. Only a boy and a girl, dancing the first dance of their lives to scratchy music and the hiss of machine joints. Elara closed her eyes, enjoying the feeling of walking, of being held. She wished this moment would last forever. But she didn't know that 10,000 meters above their heads, a storm was forming. At the central control room of the Cloud Palace, a security officer had just run breathlessly into Governor Vance's room, holding an urgent report. "Sir, we just detected a deficit in the nanocarbon storage, and the locator signal of the stolen chip it is emitting from the mire." Sector 7. Governor Vance slowly swiveled his chair around. His face was cold, but his eyes flared with a terrifying fire of rage. "Sector 7, he muttered. "Prepare the ship. I will personally go down there to bring my daughter back." Down in the workshop, the music ended. Kaelen and Elara stopped, looking at each other, smiling, the smile of those who had just defeated fate. They didn't know that as the music stopped, the sound of sirens began to echo from afar. A fateful night had only just begun. Chapter 6. The Escape in the Night. Wee woo, wee woo, the siren wasn't coming from the old radio. It echoed from the sky, piercing through the thin corrugated iron roof of the workshop, slamming into the chests of the two who were drunk on the ecstasy of their first dance. Kaelen started, letting go of Elara's hand. His dreamy eyes instantly shifted to the high alert mode of a startled predator. He rushed to the window, peering through the tattered curtain at the sky. 3 scout ships bearing the Royal Silver Eagle emblem were circling the sky of Sector 7. Powerful searchlight beams swept back and forth over the shanty roofs, tearing through the darkness of the mire. "They're here." Kaelen turned back, his voice urgent. "Faster than I thought. The locator chip in that nano vial must still be transmitting." Elara stood frozen in the middle of the room. Her mechanical legs were still glowing soft purple, but fear had begun to creep back in, paralyzing the joy that had just blossomed. "My father," Elara whispered, her face pale. "He will destroy it. He will dismantle these legs. No one is allowed to touch my work," Kaelen growled. He grabbed an old, long leather trench coat, faded and stained with oil, hanging on a hook. He rushed over, draping it over Elara. The oversized coat swallowed her slender figure and the magnificent evening gown. It smelled of machine oil, sweat, and cheap tobacco, but right now, it was the safest camouflage. "Let's go." Kaelen took her hand. "We can't stay here. They will thermal scan this room in 3 minutes." "Go where?" Elara asked, trying to follow him. Her steps were still clumsy. "Blend into the crowd," Kaelen replied curtly. "Night market. The only place where royal censors get scrambled." The back door of the workshop opened to a narrow, damp alley full of garbage. "Careful," Kaelen whispered, wrapping his arm around Elara's waist, helping her down the slippery, rusty iron stairs. For Elara, every step was a battle. The exoskeleton worked perfectly, But her brain wasn't used to controlling her center of gravity on uneven terrain. The metal soles hit the stone ground, creating a clop, clop, echoing in the empty alley. "Relax your hips," Kaelen instructed, his voice deep in her ear. "Don't fight it. Let the machine lead you." They weaved through rows of shanties stacked on top of each other like rotting boxes. Overhead, the sound of scout ship jet engines got closer. The wind from the propellers blasted down, blowing trash everywhere. A searchlight beam swept right past where they stood. Kaelen quickly pressed Elara against the mossy brick wall, using his body to shield her. The blinding light grazed the back of his shirt, just centimeters away. Elara held her breath. She could feel the warmth from his chest transferring to her cheek, and the sound of his heart beating rapidly like war drums. When the light passed, Kaelen grabbed her hand, pulling her along. "Run!" Elara gritted her teeth. She commanded her legs. "Run! Run!" The hydraulic pistons hissed zzz, zzz, powerfully. For the first time in her life, Elara felt the wind slapping her face, not because she was in a flying car, but because her own legs were tearing through the wind. The feeling was so free it made her want to cry. They escaped the slums and entered the main avenue of the Neo-Vesper night market. Immediately, all of Elara's senses were assaulted. The space exploded with millions of neon lights in every color, pink, blue, purple, yellow, flashing from billboards covered in scribbles of various languages. Electronic music pounded, mixing with hawkers' cries, arguments, the sizzle of grease, and vehicle horns. The smell here was pungent and mixed, the scent of spicy seasoning, charred grilled meat, cleaning chemicals, and the sweat of thousands of people crowded together. Elara was overwhelmed. She huddled close to Kaelen, her hand gripping his sleeve tight. This was the world beneath the mire that her father always described as hell. But why was it so bright and alive? "Don't let go of my hand," Kaelen said loudly to drown out the noise, pulling the hood of Elara's coat lower to hide her striking platinum hair. "Just walk naturally. Don't look anyone in the eye." They wove through stalls selling old electronic components, counters selling synthetic meat steaming hot. The people here, cyborgs, hybrids, miners, mercenaries, brushed past them hurriedly, no one paying attention to a strange couple holding hands. Here, everyone was anonymous. Suddenly, Kaelen stopped in front of a roadside fast food stall. An old cyborg woman with a bulging camera eye was flipping meat on a grill. 2 skewers of spicy grilled rock lizard. "Old lady," Kaelen said, tossing 2 coins on the table. "Rock lizard?" Elara whispered, eyes wide, her stomach suddenly growling. Kaelen took 2 hot skewers, blew on them, then handed her one. "Don't ask about the ingredients. Eat. You need energy to keep running." Elara hesitated, taking the skewer. In the palace, she only ate refined nutritional soups. She had never eaten anything looking so wild. She took a small bite. Spicy heat exploded in her mouth, followed by the rich sweetness of the meat and a distinct smoky flavor. It was good. Nakedly good. "Good?" Kaelen asked, chewing with his mouth full. Elara nodded furiously, tears streaming from the spice, but she smiled. "Good. Very good." Kaelen looked at her, his eyes softening. Amidst this noisy and chaotic night market, the image of the noble princess wearing a tattered coat, sauce on her mouth, standing on scrap metal legs, made his heart ache with love. He pulled her into a smaller, emptier alley, hidden behind a giant hologram billboard projecting a seductive virtual singer. The pink-purple neon light from the sign cast down, dyeing Elara's face a magical beauty. "We are safe for now." Kaelen leaned back against the wall, exhaling. "The magnetic field here is very strong. Their scanners will be blinded." Elara stood opposite him. She was still panting from the run. Her mechanical legs buzzed with vibration, but she didn't feel tired. She felt alive. Kaelen, she called his name. Thank you, actually, thank you. Note. In Vietnamese she shifts from Nguoi to An, implying intimacy. In English, the tone shift must be conveyed through context or tone. Thank you, truly. Elara took a step forward. The clop of the metal soul rang out decisively. She looked up, gazing deep into his amber eyes. You gave me legs. You showed me this world. I don't want to go back to that glass cage anymore. Kaelen looked at her trembling lips and yearning eyes. He knew this boundary shouldn't be crossed. He was mud, she was sky clouds. But tonight, the sky had swooped down to the earth. Elara, Kaelen whispered, his voice hoarse. He raised his hand, calloused fingers gently brushing a lock of platinum hair on her cheek. You know, following me will be very hard, right? I'm not afraid of hardship, Elara replied, her hand holding the hand on her cheek. I'm only afraid of loneliness. And then, without needing a signal, they leaned in. The first kiss happened in a dirty alley, under cheap flickering neon lights and the smog of an industrial city. Elara's lips were soft and tasted of spicy barbecue sauce. Kaelen's lips were rough and tasted salty with sweat. It was a clumsy, hasty kiss, but contained all the suppression, rebellion, and craving for freedom of two lonely souls. Elara's metal exoskeleton bumped lightly against Kaelen's leg, creating a clanking sound, like a bizarre soundtrack for their love. In that moment, the world around them vanished. No guards, no class distinction. Only hot breath and heartbeats merging as one. But fate did not allow them to enjoy that moment for too long. Boom. A loud explosion rang out right at the head of the alley, blowing away the hologram billboard. Glass shards and electric sparks flew everywhere. Kaelen reacted instantly. He hugged Elara tight, spinning to use his back to shield her from the debris. From within the thick dust smoke, looming tall dark figures stepped out. Not normal guards. These were the Praetorian Guards. Governor Vance's elite cyborg warriors, equipped with pristine white armor and heavy weapons. And standing amidst them, with a face as cold as a statue, was Governor Vance. Found you, his voice rang out, colder than the Myers night wind. Kaelen let go of Elara, pushing her behind his back. He pulled the wrench from his belt, a laughable weapon against plasma guns, but he gripped it with both hands. Don't you dare touch her, Kaelen roared. Governor Vance just glanced at Kaelen once, looking at him like a cockroach. Then he looked at the mechanical legs glowing purple under his daughter's coat. Elara, he said, voice gentle but full of menace. Come here. Don't make me dirty these gloves. Elara clung to the back of Kaelen's coat, trembling all over. But then, she looked at the thin back shielding her, looking at his hands shaking from anger, not fear. She took a deep breath. She couldn't hide behind him forever. These legs, he made them for her to stand firm. Elara stepped out from behind Kaelen. She stood parallel to him. No, father, she said, her voice ringing clear and steadfast amidst the whistling wind. I am not going anywhere. Governor Vance narrowed his eyes. Seize them. Destroy those legs. But keep the girl alive. Sir. The Praetorian Guard simultaneously activated their weapons. Gun barrels glowed. Run! Kaelen shouted, grabbing Elara's hand. But this time, the dead end was right behind them. Chapter 7. The Cruel Truth. The small alley instantly turned into a cramped and unjust arena. The pink-purple neon lights flashing above now reflected coldly on the pristine white composite armor of the Praetorian Guards, creating a gruesome contrast. Kaelen! Watch out! Elara screamed, her voice breaking in the whistling wind. A massive guard lunged forward, a giant mechanical arm swinging like a sledgehammer. Kaelen wasn't a warrior. He was just a mechanic. He had no combat skills, But he had the survival instinct of a sewer rat from the mire. He agilely ducked low, slipping under the giant's armpit. His hand quickly pulled a handful of bolts from his pocket, throwing them straight into the guard's exposed knee joint, a weakness he had spotted from the first second. Screech. The bolts jammed the pivot shaft. The guard froze, stumbling and falling. "Run, Elara! Use those legs! Run!" Kaelen screamed, turning to block two others charging in. He swung the wrench, smashing hard against one's helmet, creating an ear-piercing clang but leaving only a small scratch. Elara stepped back, breathing heavily. She wanted to run. The mechanical legs hissed zzz, awaiting command. But how could she leave him? How could she run on the legs he traded everything to give her, only to leave him to die? No. Elara shook her head violently. She looked around, grabbing a rusty iron bar from the ground, charging towards Kaelen. "I'm not leaving." But the courage of a girl who had never held anything heavier than a silver spoon was meaningless against overwhelming military power. A blue electric pulse shot from the commander's gun barrel. Zap! It hit Elara in the back. Not lethal, but enough to paralyze her motor nervous system. "Hey!" Elara shrieked, her body going stiff, falling face down onto the dirty ground. The exoskeleton flashed once then went dark, reverting to a pile of lifeless, heavy iron crushing her legs. "Elara!" Kaelen whipped around, that distraction costing him. A heavy gun butt struck hard against the back of his neck. Thud. Kaelen saw the world spin. Fresh blood gushed out, hot, running down his eyes, turning his vision a sickly red. He collapsed, trying to prop himself up to stand, but an armored boot stomped hard on his back, pressing his face into a puddle of stagnant, foul water. "It's over," Governor Vance's cold voice rang out. His footsteps were slow, calm, approaching where Elara lay prone, helpless. He bent down, not to help his daughter up, but to look at her legs. He used the toe of his shiny shoe to flip up the hem of Elara's tattered dress, revealing the crude metal skeleton Kaelen had built. "Disgusting," Vance spat out those two words as if he had just seen a parasite. "Trash technology, patched together from filthy scrap, and you dare attach it to the noble body of the Vance lineage?" Elara tried to lift her head, tears mixing with the mud on her cheek. "Father, don't, it helps me walk, they are wings." "Wings?" Vance scoffed. He squatted down, his white-gloved hand touching the central processor at Elara's waist, containing the nanocarbon core. "These aren't wings, daughter. These are chains of the lowborn. And I will free you." He signaled a technician soldier to step forward. The soldier held a massive hydraulic plier device. "Remove it. Immediately." "No. You can't." Kaelen screamed under the guard's boot. He struggled wildly, blood streaming down his forehead. "You'll hurt her. The nervous system is connected. Don't rip it out." Vance didn't even look at Kaelen. He nodded coldly. The technician put the pliers to the main joint. "No. Father. Please." Elara cried out, clutching her father's leg, begging. "Don't take it away. I beg you. I want to walk. I want to stand. It will only hurt a little," Vance said, voice void of emotion. "Do it." Crack. The sound of metal snapping rang out dry, brutal. But the most terrible sound was Elara's scream. A. It wasn't a scream of the body, but the scream of a soul being torn apart. When the skeleton was forcibly separated from the spinal cord without disconnection protocol, a massive feedback pulse rebounded into her brain. Elara convulsed violently once, then slumped like a puppet with cut strings. Her violet eyes rolled back then shut tight, fainting in pain. The skeleton, Kaelen's life work, Elara's hope, was tossed aside like a pile of worthless scrap. Severed cables still sparked faint electricity, as if dying. "Elara," Kaelen wheezed, his throat choked with bitterness. He looked at the small girl lying motionless on the cold ground, her bare legs returning to their withered and weak state. His heart shattered. Not because his work was destroyed, but because he had failed to protect her. Dragged him up. Vance stood straight, adjusting his cuffs, then turned to look at Kaelen. Two guards hauled Kaelen up by his armpits, forcing him to his knees before the governor. Vance looked down at the mechanic boy with utter contempt. He picked up a piece of broken metal from the skeleton, the very knee joint Kaelen had filed for 3 nights straight. "Who do you think you are?" Vance asked, voice light. "A filthy mechanic from the Mar, daring to dream of changing natural laws? You think this pile of trash can replace royal technology?" Kaelen spat a mouthful of blood and saliva right next to Vance's polished shoes. He looked up, his amber eyes swollen but still burning with hatred. "That pile of trash," Kaelen said, word by word, clear and steely, "did what your entire fortune couldn't." It made her smile, and it made her stand tall. "As for you, you only know how to make her kneel." Vance's facial muscles twitched. The fake calmness cracked. That sentence had touched the ego of a dictator. "You have a way with words, brat." Vance threw the metal piece to the ground. "But in this city, talent without status is just a threat." He turned his back, waving his hand gently as if shooing a fly. "Take the lady back to the palace. As for this one," he looked toward the end of the alley, leading to the wind abyss, the edge of the flying city, where waste was dumped straight down to the polluted earth below. "Since he likes trash so much, return him to where he belongs." "Sir." Kaelen was dragged towards the abyss. He didn't resist anymore. His strength was depleted. He just tried to turn his head to look at Elara one last time. A soldier was hoisting her unconscious body onto his shoulder. Her tattered silk dress hung down, her arm dangling, swaying with the steps. "Elara," Kaelen whispered her name like a prayer. They dragged him to the edge. Wind blasted up from below, carrying the pungent stench of chemicals and death from the wasteland, the tomb of the old world. No one survived falling there. The 10,000-meter height and acidic fog crushed everything. "Say goodbye to the sky, rat," the soldier whispered in his ear, then pushed hard. Kaelen felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. His body fell freely into the thick fog. He saw the neon lights of the night market shrinking, becoming tiny specks like falling stars. And the last image he remembered before darkness swallowed everything was Elara's peaceful sleeping face and the purple light dying out from the shattered pieces of the mechanical legs lying on the cold ground. The wind whistled in his ears like a mournful wail. Kaelen closed his eyes. A hot tear flew back up to the high sky, leaving behind an unfulfilled promise. "I will return. One way or another. I will return to get your wings." Then darkness swallowed him whole. Chapter 8. House Arrest. Upper Realm. Cloud Palace. Elara woke up in stark white. White ceiling. White walls. White sheets. The smell of strong antiseptic assaulted her nose, cold and unfeeling, erasing every trace of machine oil, smoke dust, and salty sweat she had tasted last night. She lay motionless, eyes wide, staring blankly at the ceiling. She tried to move her legs. Nothing happened. No smooth zzz of servo motors. No reassuring weight of the metal frame. No tingle of electricity running down her spine. Only dead silence. Her legs had returned to being two useless lumps of flesh, limp and cold under the thick blanket. Kaelen, her lips moved, but her dry throat couldn't produce a sound. The sliding door opened. Governor Vance walked in. He was still impeccable, dignified as always, carrying a tray of nutritious food steaming lightly. "You're awake," he said, voice calm as if nothing had happened last night. He placed the tray on the table, then pressed a button on the wall. From the floor, a hover chair slowly rose. Not the old X9000. This was the X0 model, The newest, plated in pure gold, seat upholstered in deep red velvet, integrated with a 3D entertainment screen and automatic massage system. It was magnificent. It was lavish. And it looked exactly like a flying coffin. "My apology gift," Vance said, patting the chair arm. "This one is much smoother than that pile of scrap the filthy mechanic installed on you. It has a fully automatic pilot mode. You don't even need to touch the control panel." Elara slowly turned her head, looking at the chair, then at her father. Her eyes were empty, soulless like a porcelain doll drained of its spirit. "Where is he?" she asked, voice hoarse. Vance paused, spooning some soup and blowing on it. "Who?" "Ah, that criminal? He received the appropriate punishment for kidnapping and destroying royal property. You killed him," Elara stated, not a question. Tears silently flowed from the corners of her eyes, rolling down into the pillow. "I just took out the trash, daughter." Vance put the spoon down, tone becoming stern. "He was garbage. He sullied your purity. Forget him. From now on, you are not allowed to leave this room until you learn to be grateful for what I do for you." He stood up, adjusting his uniform. "Eat. Then rest. Tomorrow I will bring a psychologist." The door closed. The magnetic lock clicked with a dry clack. Elara lay alone in the vast room. She didn't cry out loud. The pain was too great for her to scream. She reached inside her baggy patient gown. Her fingers touched a hard, tiny, cold object. It was the flower made of soda cans Kaelen had given her. By some miracle, the guards hadn't searched her thoroughly, or they deemed it just trash and didn't bother taking it. Elara clutched that trash flower in her hand, letting its sharp edges cut into her flesh, creating a stinging pain. Pain means I'm still alive. She turned her face to the tempered glass window. Outside, white clouds floated, obscuring the world below. "You're not dead," she whispered to the flower, her eyes gradually becoming resolute, burning with a cold fire. "You can't be dead. You promised to give me wings." Suddenly, the floor beneath her back vibrated slightly. Very slightly. The water in the glass on the table rippled, creating small rings. The chandelier on the ceiling swayed. An earthquake? Impossible. Ethelgard was a floating city. It didn't sit on the ground. Elara frowned. She pressed her ear to the cold floor. Hum, hum, a low sound, like a groan of pain echoing from deep within the city. It wasn't the wind. It was the sound of metal under overload pressure. This city was shivering. The mire, the wasteland, ground level. Kaelen woke up to a pain tearing apart his soul. He opened his eyes, but everything around was a grayish, murky color of acidic fog. His lungs burned like he inhaled fire. He coughed hackingly, every cough making his chest ache as if stabbed by knives. He was lying on a soft mountain, reeking of a pungent stench. It was a giant mushroom patch growing on organic waste that had decomposed for centuries. This thick, spongy layer of mushrooms had saved his life after the fall from 10,000 meters, though his ribs were definitely broken. Kaelen tried to sit up, but dizziness hit him, making him fall back down. "Am I alive?" he asked himself, his voice wheezing like wind through a crack. He felt around. His hands touched mud, plastic waste, and sharp metal pieces. This was the wasteland, the tomb of old human civilization, where Ethelgard citizens believed only monsters and death existed. Kaelen tore a piece of fabric from his pant leg, tying it tight around his nose and mouth to filter some toxic dust. He had to move. If he lay here, the acid fog would corrode his flesh before he starved to death. He crawled, step by step, on hands and knees. The scene around was terrifyingly desolate. Skyscrapers of the old world were now just rusted iron skeletons poking the sky like bony fingers. Roads cracked open, flooded with black water. But Kaelen, with the eyes of a genius mechanic, saw something else. He saw resources. He picked up an old plasma energy bar still holding some charge. He found a military air filter from the wreck of an ancient tank. He walked and assembled simultaneously, his hands trembling but retaining their instinctive dexterity. After 3 hours of struggle, Kaelen reached the foot of a massive metal tower. It was bigger than any building in Ethelgard. It plunged deep into the earth and stretched straight up into the high sky, piercing the cloud layer, vanishing into the atmosphere. Kaelen looked up. He recognized it. This was the anchor. Legend said Ethelgard didn't float naturally. It was held in power by massive anchors planted into the ground, drawing geothermal energy from the planet's core to maintain the anti-gravity system. But this anchor was sick. Kaelen pressed his ear against the tower's cold metal shell. Screech, screech, bam. Violent banging inside. Strong vibrations transmitted through the steel shell shook Kaelen's entire body. "This is bad," Kaelen muttered, eyes wide with horror. The rotating shaft is off-center. Hydraulic pistons are overloading. He found a technical control panel hidden under mutated vines at the tower base. It was broken, screen shattered, but the emergency warning lights still blinked a sickly red. Kaelen used the plasma energy bar he just found, jabbing it into the connection port to reactivate backup power. Beep. Red text appeared on the cracked screen, warning. Gravity balance system anchor 7, unstable. Status: 15%. Predicted collapse: 48 hours. Kaelen collapsed to the ground. Anchor number 7. This was the anchor supporting the Cloud Palace and Elara where he lived. The city wasn't just falling into the hands of a cruel dictator. It was actually falling. Literally. If this system collapsed, all of Ethelgard would drop to the ground like a stone, crushing everyone above, including Elara. No, Kaelen gritted his teeth, fear overriding the pain from his broken ribs. He couldn't die here. He couldn't let her die. Kaelen looked around the massive scrap pile of the old world. Aircraft wrecks, old rocket engines, ancient generators, everything was here. A crazy, bold thought flashed in the mechanic's mind. If he couldn't climb up by ladder, he would fly up. Kaelen stood up, swaying but his eyes burning with determination. He gripped the rusty wrench he just found. "Wait for me, Elara," he screamed, the yell echoing into the endless fog. "I won't let the sky fall." At the foot of the giant tower, a small figure began gathering screws, starting a race against death to save the girl imprisoned 9 cloud layers above. Chapter 9: The Falling City. Upper Realm. 24 hours after Kaelen fell, Ethelgard was groaning. Not the sound of wind whistling through skyscrapers, nor the noise of traffic. It was a deep, dull sound emitting from the city's very backbone. It sounded like the grinding teeth of a giant beast enduring extreme pain. In her luxurious house arrest room, Elara lay with her ear pressed to the cold floor. She had refused to sit in the gold-plated X-Zero hover chair her father brought. She would rather crawl on the floor with scratched hands than be bound to that soulless technology again. Thump, thump, boom, vibrations transmitted through the marble floor, hitting her eardrums directly. "It's tilting," Elara whispered, violet eyes wide watching the glass of water on the table. The water surface was no longer flat. It was tilting east by about 5 degrees. The door burst open. Not her father. It was a young maid, face pale with fear. Miss Elara," the maid stammered, hands holding a food tray shaking so hard soup spilled out. "The governor ordered you to eat." Boom. A strong tremor hit suddenly. The whole building shook violently as if a giant hand shook it hard. The maid screamed, dropping the tray. The sound of shattering dishes mixed with sirens starting to wail shrilly throughout the corridor. Crystal chandeliers on the ceiling swayed madly, clinking against each other in chaotic chimes. Elara was thrown to the side, her shoulder hitting the bed leg painfully. But she didn't scream. She knew this was coming. Help me! Elara shouted at the maid sitting on the floor crying. Drag me to the desk. Hurry! But the governor forbade. My father is busy saving his chair. If you want to live, do as I say. The innate authority in Elara's voice snapped the maid to her senses. She hurriedly crawled over, hoisting Elara under the arms, dragging the crippled princess to the desk integrated with the central computer system. Elara grabbed the edge of the desk, pulling herself up. Her fingers flew across the touch keyboard. Password, password, she muttered. She recalled the times she peeked at her father entering commands. Vance_ATHELGARD_01. Access denied. Damn it. Elara slammed her hand on the table. She breathed deep, remembering Kaelen's words. Every system has a backdoor. If you can't enter through the front, go through the vent. She switched to the technical interface, accessing the energy dispatch system, which was less secured. The screen displayed a glowing red chart. Warning. Anchor shaft 7 disconnected. City center of gravity shifting. Forecast. Ground impact in 12 hours. 12 hours. Not 48 hours as initially estimated. The city structure was collapsing exponentially faster. We are falling, Elara turned to the maid, voice strangely calm. This city is about to fall to the ground. The maid covered her mouth, eyes bulging in horror, then ran out of the room screaming. Elara remained alone. She looked at the red screen. She had to do something. She couldn't just sit here waiting to die. She reached into her pocket, pulling out Kaelen's scrap metal flower. If you are alive, she squeezed the flower until her hand bled. You wouldn't let this happen. Where are you, Kaelen? The mire. The wasteland. Aku. Kaelen sneezed hard, black soot shooting from his nose. He wiped his face with a blistered arm. In front of him, amidst the thick acid fog, was a monster. Not a living creature. It was the most bizarre, patched-up flying machine in the world. Its body was the hull of an ancient submarine, half-rusted. Its wings were welded from corrugated iron sheets taken from collapsed warehouse roofs. And the engine was a massive jet block he dismantled from the broken anchor, combined with 4 industrial gas tanks. It was ugly. It was crude. It looked like a flying pile of trash. Kaelen patted the hull. Bong, bong, the hollow metal sound rang out. All right, the brick, Kaelen whispered to the machine, a crooked smile on his face gaunt from hunger and pain. You're truly ugly. But I bet you fly faster than those flimsy iron birds up there. He climbed into the cockpit. Essentially an old pilot seat bolted straight to the deck, surrounded by exposed wires and pressure gauges spinning wildly. Pain from broken ribs flared every time he moved suddenly, reminding him time was running out. Kaelen looked up at the sky. Thick clouds obscured Ethelgard, but he could feel the tremors transmitting down to the ground. Small debris from the city started falling like a meteor shower, bolts, wall chunks, and even broken cleaning robots. It's collapsing, Kaelen muttered. He put on a chipped helmet, strapped on goggles. His hand placed on the starter lever, a makeshift welded iron bar. Navigation system, broken. Balance system, non-existent. Brakes, who needs brakes? Kaelen took a deep breath. In his mind appeared Elara's image. Her smile when she stood up for the first time. Her tailwind dragged away by her father. For you, Elara. For our wings. He slammed the lever forward. Click, click, boom. A terrifying explosion tore the silence of the wasteland. Blue flames shot out from the tail, incinerating a giant mushroom patch behind. The brick shook violently as if about to fall apart. Screws rattled clank-clank continuously. Fly. Don't stall. Kaelen screamed, gripping the violently shaking stick. The immense thrust pressed him into the seat. The heavy machine slowly lifted off the ground, wobbling, tilting, then shot up into the sky like a cannonball. Middle layer. Old lower residential area. Chaos had erupted. As the gravity system weakened, the slums in the mire were hit first. Railroad tracks cracked open. Suspension bridges snapped cables, falling into the abyss carrying desperate screams. Mire dwellers flooded the streets, trampling each other to run towards the central elevators leading to the upper realm. But the gates separating the classes were locked tight. "Open the door. Let us up. We're going to die." Screams and banging echoed in futility. From above, royal guards pointed guns down, faces cold behind gas masks. "Back. This is a restricted area. Anyone crossing will be shot." Amidst that hellish scene, a strange sound rang out from the abyss below. Not the sound of breaking metal, but the roar of a crude jet engine. WHOOSH. The crowd looked down. Guards looked down. Piercing through the thick fog below, a brilliant blue streak of fire shot up. A bizarre ship, patched from trash, was rocketing straight up at insane speed, tearing through the black clouds. It flew past the mire, creating a shockwave knocking guards over. "What the hell is that?" "It's a ship. Someone is flying up from the wasteland." In the violently shaking cockpit, Kaelen gritted his teeth, nose bleeding from excessive G-force. He didn't care about the crowd below. His target was the peak. The Cloud Palace. "Come on, Brick. Punch through the storm layer." In front of him was the storm belt, the natural protective layer surrounding the upper class, with lightning and extreme tornadoes. The ship dove straight into the eye of the storm. Crack. Lightning hit the left wing. The corrugated iron sheet ripped off, flying away. The ship spun in circles mid-air. "Lost left wing." "Damn it!" Kaelen screamed, slamming the emergency boost button. "Burn auxiliary fuel. Rebalance with thrust." The engine roared deafeningly. The ship stopped spinning, regaining balance miraculously thanks to the pilot's madness. It continued shooting up, piercing the pitch-black clouds. And then, light, the Brick burst out of the storm, flying into the clear blue sky of the upper realm. Before Kaelen was the magnificent Cloud Palace, tilting. Crystal towers cracking. Smoke rising from hanging gardens. And in the highest tower, through the tempered glass, he saw a small figure pressing hands against the window. Elara saw it. Amidst the chaotic sky with luxurious escape pods fleeing, a black, ugly, smoking object was hurtling towards her. It had no aerodynamic beauty. No shiny paint. It was a scar on the perfect sky. But Elara recognized it. She recognized that rule-breaking style. "Kaelen," she gasped, tears flowing. "You came. You really came." The ship circled the tower once, then hovered right in front of her room window. The cockpit glass was half broken. Wind blew Kaelen's hair wildly. He looked at her, face full of blood and soot, but his amber eyes shone brighter than any star. He gave a thumbs up, then pointed down below. "To the anchor system." Elara nodded. She understood. He didn't come to save her to run away. He came to save this whole city. And he needed her help. She turned back to the control desk. The screen still showed red text. "Access denied." But this time, she wasn't afraid. "All right, Father," she said, fingers on the keyboard. "You locked the front door. But you forgot your daughter learned lockpicking from the world's best thief." She began typing. Lines of code ran down the screen, reflected in her resolute violet eyes. Outside, Kaelen turned the ship, nose-diving straight toward the palace's energy core area. The final battle to reclaim the sky began. Chapter 10. Signal from Underground. Upper Realm. Elara's room. The holographic screen in front of Elara glowed a deadly red. The security codes of Ethelgerd's defense system rose before her like walls of eternal ice, cold and impenetrable. It was her father's masterpiece, Governor Vance. A perfect system, flawless, designed to stop every intrusion from outside and control every rebellion from within. But Elara knew a secret her father had forgotten. Nothing is perfect forever. Everything rusts. She closed her eyes for a second, inhaling deeply the artificial lavender scent, being overpowered by the smell of burning wires in the walls. In her mind appeared the image of Kaelen's calloused hands gliding over the old keyboard in the shabby workshop. "Don't try to break the wall, Elara," his voice echoed in her memory. "Find the smallest crack and pour water in. When the water freezes, it will crack the rock itself." Elara opened her eyes. Violet eyes no longer held the fear of an imprisoned princess. They were the eyes of a hacker, an accomplice. She didn't use standard royal attack algorithms. She began typing chaotic, illogical command lines, simulating the flickering electrical pulses of Mara machinery. She was injecting the system with a virus of imperfection. Clack. 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 Her fingers danced on the virtual keyboard. Sweat beaded on her forehead, running into stinging eyes. Outside the window, Kaelen's ship, the brick, wobbled closer. Behind it, 3 automatic anti-air turrets on top of the energy tower had rotated barrels, locking on target. "Don't shoot him," Elara hissed through her teeth. "I forbid you to shoot him." On the screen, the turret status bar turned bright red. "Target locked. Fire in 3, 2, Elara screamed, index finger pressing hard on the enter key with all her might. Beep. A green command line flashed, slipping through the red wall like a vine breaking concrete. Anti-IR system, disabled, maintenance mode. The sky, inside, the brick. Kaelen squinted at the black gun barrels pointing straight at him. He knew he couldn't dodge. This ship was too bulky, and he was out of fuel for evasive maneuvers. "Come on then," he whispered, gripping the stick, ready to accept death. But no laser beam fired. Instead, the giant barrels suddenly drooped, lights going out, spinning aimlessly like puppets with cut strings. Kaelen was stunned for a split second, then a radiant smile burst on his blood and soot-stained face. He looked towards the shattered window of the distant tower, where Elara was. "Good job, partner," he shouted in the noisy cockpit. "You're a genius." The path to the energy tower was open. But Kaelen couldn't land. The landing pad had half collapsed from aftershocks. He only had one choice: dive straight into the massive exhaust vent gaping open on the tower side. "Brick, I'm sorry," Kaelen patted the smoking dashboard. "You won't survive this. But I promise to build you a statue." He pushed the speed lever to max. The ship roared heartbreakingly, rushing like a suicide missile. 500 meters. 200 meters. 50 meters. Kaelen hit the emergency ejection button. Boom. The cockpit canopy blew off. The entire pilot seat with Kaelen was shot out into midair. Just a second later, the brick slammed into the exhaust mouth. Kaboom! A massive explosion shook the sky. Metal debris flew like fireworks. The ship hull jammed into the pipe mouth, blocking the hot airflow, creating a cloud of thick black smoke. Kaelen floated in midair, the parachute deploying behind him with a sharp jerk that felt like his broken ribs wanted to pierce his lungs. He bit his lip not to scream in pain, trying to steer the chute towards a tiny maintenance balcony just below the explosion. Thump! His old shoes hit the ground. He rolled, hitting the steel railing, gasping. He was inside. Central Control Room. Cloud Palace. Report. Turrets 1, 2, and 3 powered down automatically. We lost control of defensive systems. Report. An unidentified flying object just crashed into the energy tower. Suspected suicide terrorist attack. Panic shouts filled Yethelgard's brain center. High-ranking officers ran around, faces pale. Governor Vance stood amidst that chaos, hands pressing hard on the strategic map table, knuckles white. His eyes were veined with red blood. "Suicide terrorist?" Vance repeated. voice growling. No, that's that mechanic. He's not dead. He returned for revenge. He looked at the big screen, showing black smoke rising from the energy tower. Vance was sure Kaelen wanted to destroy the energy core to drag the city into the grave with him. Someone from the mire only knew destruction, never how to build. That prejudice was ingrained in his flesh and blood. Governor, we traced the source of the defensive hack. A technician shouted, voice trembling. Where? Outside or inside? Inside, sir. Signal originating from Royal Residence Sector. Room 1. Vance froze. The whole room went silent. Room 1. Elara's room. Vance's face shifted from anger to shock, then finally froze in a terrifying coldness. She dares, he whispered. She dares betray her own blood to protect a sewer rat. He drew the pistol at his hip, cocking it with a click. Send Alpha Team to the energy tower to eliminate the intruder. At any cost, do not let him touch the core. As for me, I'm going to re-educate my daughter. Energy tower. Core area. Kaelen limped along the dark, sweltering technical corridor. Sirens blared in his ears, red lights spinning. He clutched his side, blood from a head wound running down, blurring one eye. Every running step was torture, but he dared not stop. In front of him was the door leading to the heart, containing the main gravity balance system of the entire city. It was a 50-centimeter thick steel door, locked by 3 layers of biometric encryption. Kaelen rushed over, slapping his hand on the panel. Access denied. Damn it! Kaelen screamed, punching the cold steel door. He pulled out wires and a homemade decoder from his pocket, trying to hotwire it directly. But his hands shook too much, and the security here was too complex compared to what he usually faced. He heard the stomping boots of guards approaching from behind. The click-clack of guns loading. He had no way out. Kaelen pressed his ear to the tiny communicator on his collar, capped from the pilot suit. Elara? Are you there? He called, voice breaking. I'm stuck. Vault door 4. I can't open it. Elara's room. Elara heard his voice. Static, weak, mixed with gasps, but to her, it was the most soothing sound on earth. I'm here, Kaelen, she replied, hands still typing furiously. Don't worry. I see you. I'm in the system. On her screen, a red dot blinked before Vault Door 4, and behind that red dot were dozens of green dots. Guards swarming in. Hurry, Elara, Kaelen urged. She heard gunshots bang over the radio. They're shooting. I'm trying. Elara bit her lip until it bled. The code for Door 4 was quantum rotating encryption. It changed every second. She couldn't decode it in time. She had to do something more reckless. Overload the door's electrical system so the safety latch blows. But doing so would expose her location completely on the security grid. Her father would know exactly what she was doing. Bam! Her room door shook violently. The magnetic key was scanning outside. Her father had arrived. Open the door, Elara. Governor Vance's voice roared outside. Elara didn't turn around. She looked at the red dot on the screen. Her Kaelen, her hero. Kaelen, she said into the mic, voice strangely gentle amidst the storm. Do you trust me? Always, Kaelen's voice replied instantly, without hesitation, accompanied by bullets whistling past his ear. Then get ready to run. Elara took a deep breath. She typed the final command, override ALL lock safety OFF, and she pressed enter the moment her room door was blasted open. Energy tower clang. The giant steel door before Kaelen shuddered, then popped open with a loud pneumatic blast. Kaelen didn't hesitate a second. He rolled inside just as a plasma volley tore up the spot where he stood. Bam! The automatic door slammed shut right behind him, sealing him safely inside and blocking the guards outside. Kaelen collapsed on the cool metal floor, panting. He was safe. He was inside the heart. But joy vanished when he heard sound from the communicator. Sound of a door breaking. Heavy footsteps. And Governor Vance's cold voice rang out through Elara's radio. She had forgotten to mute the mic. Seize her. Bind her hands. Father, let me go. Elara's voice screamed, then cut off. Elara! Elara! Kaelen screamed into the radio, but only static remained. He punched the floor hard, tears flowing from helplessness and rage. She had sacrificed her freedom once again to save his life. Kaelen slowly stood up. He wiped blood from his face. He looked at the massive engine block spinning madly in the center of the room. The misaligned anchor shaking, threatening to tear the city apart any moment. "All right," Kaelen said to the void, his eyes turning cold as tempered steel. "You did your part, Elara. Now it's my turn." He pulled the wrench from his belt, walking toward the giant machine roaring like a beast. "I'm going to fix you, and then I'm coming to get her." Chapter 11: The Return of the Outcast. Energy Tower. Core Chamber. The temperature inside the core chamber exceeded 60 degrees Celsius. The air was thick, dry, and reeked of burnt ozone. Kaelen ripped off his tattered leather jacket, throwing it on the floor. His thin but wiry body was drenched in sweat. Old scars and new wounds crossed each other, glowing red under the giant machine's alarming orange light. Before him was the heart of Ethelgard, a massive titanium alloy rotating shaft 10 meters in diameter, spinning wildly in its death throes. Screech, bam, screech, the shaft was off-center. Every rotation slammed into the steel casing, creating tremors that shook the tower. The automatic cooling system was broken. Hot steam sprayed from ruptured pipes like mad geysers. "You're big, all right," Kaelen shouted over the noise, gripping the oversized wrench he found in the emergency kit. "But you're just a machine. And I've never lost to a machine." He dove into the machine's underbelly. Kaelen didn't use a computer. The digital control system was completely paralyzed by software conflict. The only way to salvage the situation now was the classic way, the Mara way: physical intervention. He had to manually turn the pressure relief valve to rebalance hydraulics, then use a lever to push the shaft back into place. A job meant for industrial robotic arms now weighed heavily on the flesh and bone shoulders of a human. Kaelen climbed the violently shaking scaffolding, reaching the main relief valve. The valve was the size of a manhole cover, rusty and scorching hot. "Ah!" Kaelen screamed as his skin touched burning metal. The smell of searing flesh sizzled. But he didn't let go. He gritted his teeth, putting all force from his biceps, back, and body weight to turn the valve. Squeak! It moved a millimeter. More. "Don't be lazy," he cursed himself, sweat stinging his eyes. Hiss! Hot steam escaped, blasting his face. Valve open. Pressure dropping. The shaft began to slow its shaking. But that was just the first step. He looked down below, where giant gears were grinding against each other. A piece of the brick's hull had fallen in, jammed between two main gears, preventing them from meshing fully. That was the cause of the misalignment. Kaelen had to go down there, into the jaws of that iron monster to remove the debris. One small slip, and he would be ground into paste. Cloud Palace. Corridor to Energy Tower. Governor Vance strode down the hall, cape billowing. His eyes were colder and crueler than ever. Behind him, two guards dragged Elara. "What are you doing, father?" Elara screamed, struggling in vain. Her paralyzed legs scraped the polished marble floor. "I am doing what is necessary, Elara." Vance didn't turn back. "Anchor 7 is unsalvageable. That mechanic is only prolonging the death. I am going to the energy tower, but not to fix it." He stopped at the emergency elevator. "I will activate the severance protocol." Elara froze, blood draining from her face. Severance? You mean, cut the anchor? Correct, Vance said, voice terrifyingly calm. If the anchor is cut, the mire in the technical sector below will fall to the ground. Weight reduced by half, backup power will be enough to keep the Cloud Palace and upper sector flying. You're insane. Elara screamed, tears flowing. There are tens of thousands of people down there. Kaelen is down there. You intend to kill them all to save your throne? I am saving humanity's elite, Elara. The mob down there is just a burden. Vance turned to the guards. Lock her in the observation room. Let her witness this necessary sacrifice with her own eyes, so she understands what leadership means. He stepped into the elevator, going straight to the tower peak. Elara was thrown into a glass room suspended on the tower's side, looking straight down into the energy core chamber and the abyss below. The door locked shut. She crawled to the glass. Below, through the mesh floor, she saw a small figure struggling amidst giant gears. It was Kaelen. He was trying to save everyone, even those who despised him. And her father, he was going to the master console to cut that lifeline. No, I can't sit here and watch, Elara muttered. She looked around the room. Empty. No computer. No tools. Only a small ventilation duct near the ceiling, cover loose from aftershocks. Elara looked at her motionless legs. No exoskeleton. No support strength. She was just a weak crippled girl. But then she remembered Kaelen's words. Your body is not a mistake. You are not a monster. She didn't need iron legs to be strong. Elara gritted her teeth. She flipped the coffee table over, dragged it to the wall under the vent. She used her hands to grab wall ledges, pulling her heavy body onto the table. Pain. Her arms shook. Fingernails broke, bleeding as they clawed the wall. But she kept climbing. She squeezed into the narrow, dusty, dark vent. She used her elbows to crawl, dragging her unfeeling legs behind like a burden, but also a reminder of resilience. She was crawling towards Kaelen. Energy tower. Core chamber, come out, you bastard, Kaelen roared, both arms hugging the sharp metal piece jammed between two gears. The gears were turning slowly, grinding, crushing the debris. He was using his own spine as a lever. If the gear slipped, his arms would be crushed. Screech. With a throat-tearing scream, Kaelen yanked hard. The metal piece popped out, falling into the abyss below. Two giant gears shuddered, then slid into each other smoothly. Thump, thump, hum, the chaotic banging disappeared. Replaced by a steady, low hum, the shaft began self-adjusting to center. Ha, ha, Kaelen collapsed onto the mesh floor, exhaling, laughing like a madman. See, I told you I could fix it, but the laugh hadn't faded when slow clapping rang out from the observation walkway above. Kaelen looked up. Governor Vance stood there, looking down at him, holding a silver-plated pistol pointed straight at Kaelen's head. Impressive, mechanic, Vance said, voice echoing in the chamber. You truly have golden hands. Pity, you fixed the wrong thing. Kaelen scrambled up, holding the railing. Wrong thing? I just saved your damn city. You saved the body, but the soul needs removal. Vance walked to the manual console, where a glowing red emergency lever was. The anchor severance lever. Get away from there! Kaelen screamed, charging toward the stairs leading to Vance. Bang! A bullet plowed the ground right in front of Kaelen's shoe. He froze. One more step, and the next one is in your skull, Vance said coldly. He placed his hand on the red lever. This city is too heavy with parasites at the bottom. Thank you for fixing the stabilizer. Now the severance will proceed much smoother. You are a monster. Kaelen gritted his teeth, eyes red. Your daughter, she will never forgive you. She will understand. Vance's eyes wavered briefly, then turned to stone. History is written by those who dare make difficult decisions. He began pulling the lever down. The alarm system shrieked a different sound. Warning, Meyer detachment protocol initiated. Countdown 10, 9. Kaelen looked at Vance, then the gun. He couldn't run in time. He was too far. 8, 7. Suddenly, the vent cover right above Vance popped open. A small figure fell down. Not falling like a superhero, but falling like a sack, heavy and painful. Elara fell right onto her father. "What the?" Vance exclaimed, knocked down by the sudden weight. The gun flew far away, sliding on the metal floor. Elara had no weapon. No mechanical legs. She only had scratched hands and a frenzied will. She clung tight to her father's ankle, using her entire body weight to pin him down. "Kaelen! The lever! Push it up!" Elara screamed, voice cracking from pain as the fall shocked her spine. Vance roared in anger. He kicked hard at his daughter. "Let go! You crazy girl!" The kick hit her stomach, making Elara curl up, but her hands didn't let go. She bit into his leg, through the thick uniform fabric. "I won't let you kill them." Seizing the moment, Kaelen lunged like a leopard. He didn't go for the gun. He dove straight for the console. Countdown read, 3, 2, the lever was in down position, activated. Kaelen grabbed the lever, using both hands and body weight to push it back up. It was jammed. Hydraulic systems were locking it to execute protocol. "Go up! Go up!" Kaelen screamed, veins bulging on his neck. Bang! A gunshot rang out deafeningly. Kaelen felt a massive punch to his left shoulder. Blood splattered onto the console. Vance had reached the gun. Lying on the ground, Elara still clinging to his leg, he had fired. "Let go, or the next one goes into her heart," Vance panted, pointing a gun at Kaelen's back. Kaelen dropped to one knee, left arm completely paralyzed. But his right hand still gripped the lever. He turned his head, looking at Vance, then at Elara crying profusely at her father's feet. "Don't you understand, Governor?" Kaelen smiled, blood trickling from his mouth, staining his white teeth red. "People like me, we're used to pain." He didn't let go. Instead, he looked at Elara. "Elara, help me." Elara understood. She didn't need to defeat her father. She needed to help Kaelen. She let go of Vance's leg. She grabbed a severed high-voltage cable protruding from the nearby wall, aftermath of the earlier explosion. The wire end sparked zap-zap. "Father," Elara said, tears in her eyes but voice icy. "Here is a reality shock for you." She jammed the wire end into Vance's support armor. Zap. High voltage shot through the metal armor. Vance convulsed violently, screamed in pain, then passed out, the gun dropping from his hand. But the current also shorted the control system. Kaelen's console exploded with a big spark. The hydraulic lock on the lever popped open. Clack. "NOW!" Kaelen roared, using the last dregs of strength in his right arm, slamming the lever up to abort. 0. Screen went black. Then lit up blue. Severance protocol, aborted. Balance system, restored 85%. City, stable. Sirens stopped. The machine's roar became gentle, steady like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Kaelen slowly slid down the console base. Blood from his shoulder pooled, mixing with oil on the floor. "It's done," he whispered, vision blurring. Rustling sounds. Elara was crawling toward him. She didn't care about the torn dress, didn't care about dragging legs. She crawled through oil, over broken glass. She reached him, lifting his head, placing it on her lap. "Kaelen, Kaelen, look at me," she cried, trembling hands covering the wound on his shoulder. His blood was hot, soaking her hands. "Hey." Kaelen opened his eyes slightly, looking at her smudged face. He raised his remaining calloused hand, gently touching her cheek. "You didn't need machine legs, You still made it here. Idiot, Elara sobbed, bending down to kiss his forehead, her tears washing away the soot on his face. You promised to give me wings. You can't die. Kaelen smiled weakly. I'm just resting, a bit. His arm dropped limp. Outside the broken glass window of the energy tower, black clouds began to disperse. The first rays of dawn shone in, illuminating two tattered figures, covered in blood and oil, holding each other in the center of a world just saved. They were outcasts. But now, they were the true king and queen of Ethelgard. Chapter 12. Wings of Eternity. 6 months after the Anchor Night event, Ethelgard had changed. If you stood from the Cloud Palace balcony looking down, you would no longer see the gray sea of smog separating the worlds. The thick acid fog layers had been sucked clean by giant air filters, designed by Kaelen, revealing a clear blue sky and brilliant sunlight shining all the way to the abyss bottom. But the biggest change wasn't in the sky, but in the people. The gates separating the upper realm and the Mire had been dismantled. Massive transport elevators worked at full capacity, not to carry trash down, but to carry hope up. Mire dwellers, in smudged clothes but bright eyes, now walked freely on marble streets. Conversely, young engineers from the upper class began descending to the rust zone to learn, to touch real grease. The city was healing itself, just as the scars on Kaelen's body were fading. In the preparation room of Starlight Cathedral, once hosting lavish parties only for nobles, Kaelen stood before a mirror, fumbling with a bow tie. He wore an ivory white tuxedo, tailored exquisitely but retaining a bit of ruggedness. His left shoulder, where the bullet hit, stiffened slightly whenever he raised his arm high, a permanent reminder of the price of peace. Hold still, boy. You're making the bow crooked. A large, rough hand slapped his back. It was Grok, the old neighborhood protection boss. Now, Grok wore a tight black suit, looking like a bear trying to play gentleman, serving as Kaelen's groomsman. I'm nervous, Grok, Kaelen confessed, sweat beading on his forehead. Fixing that giant anchor was easier than this. You saved this whole city from falling, Grok guffawed, adjusting Kaelen's bow with fingers like bananas. What's scary about a wedding? Unless the bride runs away. She won't run, Kaelen smiled, eyes turning gentle. She's just preparing her wings. In the other room of the cathedral, Elara sat on a velvet-cushioned chair. There was no wheelchair in the room. She wore a wedding dress woven from silk mixed with optical fibers, glowing like thousands of stars. But the front hem was split high boldly, not to show skin, but to show off the masterpiece encasing her legs. It wasn't the crude, rusty skeleton of the past. It was Seraphim, the secret project Kaelen had stayed up 3 months straight to perfect. It was crafted from liquid silver alloy and pure nanocarbon. It hugged Elara's withered legs like a second skin, delicate, graceful, yet containing immense power. Metal borders curved softly like vines, intricately engraved, emitting a soothing turquoise light. No noisy engine sound. Seraphim operated in total silence thanks to permanent magnetic levitation technology. Elara stroked the smooth knee joint. She felt every tiny electric impulse running from her brain to her toes. It was so real she could feel the cold of the floor through sensor soles. The door opened slightly. A man in a wheelchair was pushed in by a nurse. His platinum hair was completely white. The face once authoritative and arrogant was now gaunt and aged. Ex-Governor Vance. He had been deposed, paralyzed from the waist down by the high-voltage shock, and was serving house arrest in the hospital. But today, Elara had asked for him to be here. Vance looked at his daughter in the wedding dress, then down at her beautiful mechanical legs. In those aged eyes, arrogance had vanished, leaving only late regret and a bit of respect. "It is beautiful," Vance said, voice hoarse and weak. "It is the work of the person you called trash, father," Elara replied gently. She no longer hated him. Hatred was too heavy to carry when flying up. She stood up. A smooth, fluid movement like water flow. No jerking, no effort. Seraphim lifted her, proud and steady. She stepped in front of her father, bending down to kiss his forehead lightly. I forgive you. But today, I will walk into the aisle myself. I don't need anyone leading me anymore. Vance trembled, a tear rolling down his cheek. He nodded, closing his eyes. It was the final acceptance of an old regime. Cathedral bells rang, resonant, flying far across the Ethelgard sky. The great doors opened. Sunlight flooded the aisle. Thousands were present. Nobles wearing diamond jewelry stood next to miners wearing goggles. Royal engineers stood next to night market hawkers. All held their breath looking toward the main door. Melodious music rose. Not solemn classical music, but a new arrangement, combining the whistling violin of the upper realm and the powerful timpani of the mire. The music of harmony. Elara appeared. The whole cathedral gasped in amazement. She wasn't walking. She was gliding. Every step touched the floor as lightly as a butterfly landing on a flower. The seraphim legs reflected sunlight, creating halos around her. She walked with the demeanor of a queen, head held high, a radiant smile outshining everything around. Kaelen stood at the end of the aisle, his heart wanting to jump out of his chest. He looked at the girl walking towards him. She was no longer the weak girl hiding in the garden. She was no longer the smudged girl crawling in the vent. She was a steel angel. And she was his. Elara reached Kaelen. She stopped, looking deep into his amber eyes. Eyes that had seen through her soul when the world only saw a crippled shell. "You look handsome, mechanic," she whispered, winking playfully. "You're not bad yourself, for a crybaby princess," Kaelen retorted, but his voice shook with emotion. The priest, an old model AI with a fake white beard, began reading the vows. But no one cared about those flowery words. They only watched how the bride and groom's hands intertwined, tight, without a gap. "Kaelen," Elara said, instead of reading prepared vows. "You found me in the darkness. You pieced me back together with love and patience. These legs, they don't just help me walk. They help me run to you." "Elara," Kaelen squeezed her hand. "I'm just a repairman. But you are the most perfect blueprint the universe gifted me. I promise to always oil, tighten screws, and keep your wings flying high, until my last gear stops turning. I pronounce you husband and wife," the AI priest ended with a cheerful metallic voice. "The groom may now kiss the bride." Kaelen leaned down. Elara stretched up. Their kiss happened amidst thunderous applause. Rose petals and metallic confetti were thrown into the sky. But the most magical thing hadn't stopped there. As the kiss ended, Kaelen whispered in Elara's ear, "Ready?" "Always ready," Elara smiled. Kaelen pulled a small remote from his pocket, pressing a button. Whoosh! From the calves of the seraphim, thin energy wings, transparent and glowing, suddenly unfurled. Simultaneously, under both their shoe soles, Kaelen had secretly installed mini thrusters in his shoes. A powerful jet of compressed air shot out. To the utter astonishment of the crowd, the bride and groom slowly lifted off the ground. They hovered in midair, hand in hand, wedding dress and tailcoat fluttering in the wind. "Look! They are flying." Kaelen held Elara's waist, and they began to spin. A waltz in the air, right under the cathedral dome. Elara looked down at the faces looking up at her. No one looked at her with pity anymore. They looked at her with admiration, with belief in the impossible. She looked up at Kaelen, the man who turned scrap metal into wings, turned hell into heaven. "Where are we going now?" she asked, crisp laughter merging with the wind. Kaelen looked out the large skylight, where the blue sky beckoned. "Anywhere you want, Elara. This sky is no longer the limit." They shot through the skylight, rushing into the vast emptiness, leaving behind a reviving city and a legend that would be told forever. The legend of the mechanic and the princess who taught the world that even the rustiest things can shine if polished with sincere love. And somewhere high above, amidst white clouds, two small figures were writing the next chapter of life together, free and eternal. The end.